It's always game day in Cleveland, the post-game edition. Of course, he's Daryl Ruiter. I'm Andy Baskin. A rough one at Cleveland Browns Stadium as the Baltimore Ravens take the Browns apart 28-3. Daryl, as we kind of digress into the post-game, the Browns had to make a quarterback change, but the offense didn't change. At least that was the big word coming out of the locker room after the game. So Dorian Thompson-Robinson was trying to execute Deshaun Watson's game plan, and it didn't work.
No, it didn't work, and, this falls on the front office, first and foremost. They went ahead and traded Josh Dobbs to the Arizona Cardinals, who he's starting for the Cardinals now, and they needed him today because, with all due respect to Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he looked completely out of place and ill-prepared to play this game today. But that's not his fault. He shouldn't have been in that position. He wasn't ready to be a number 2 quarterback. I think that was clear today. Baltimore was out 4 starters, and the Browns got absolutely smoked by the Ravens. That's an elite organization. Cleveland Browns are not an elite organization. They wish they were. They want to be. They're not an elite organization. The Baltimore Ravens, unfortunately, they're an elite organization. They've got an elite head coach, and they've got an elite quarterback. I just feel like this is a game Mike Tomlin would win if John Harbaugh was in Kevin Stefanski's shoes. I don't think he loses this game 28-3. I think this was just a bad job all around, from the coaching, the front office, just everything to be in this moment. And then also I think Deshaun Watson should get a little heat because you're telling the team the whole week, I can play. To the point of Kevin Stefanski's on the phone with NFL insiders Saturday night saying, Deshaun's going to play. He told us he's going to play. He's ready to go. And then they come to the stadium Sunday morning, and Deshaun can't throw a football 10 yards.
Do they need to go out and get another veteran quarterback in the next 2 weeks to bring in here just as another backup, carry another quarterback?
Well, I think it depends on where Deshaun is. And hopefully this time Deshaun will actually be honest with him what the hell's going on. Like, I blame Deshaun Watson a lot for what happened here today. Because you tell them on Friday, guys, I can't go. I can't throw a football 10 yards. I respect toughness. I respect the desire to compete and to want to play hurt and things like that. But I think Deshaun screwed the Browns Sunday. I really do, because they came into the stadium thinking he's going to play. And that warm-up that I watched, he spent more time talking to the trainer than he did actually throwing a football.
That was on Friday, not today.
No, that was this morning.
Okay.
I put it on it. I filmed it and I put it on X. Like, he spent more time talking to Joe Sheehan than he did throwing a football. And I think that's where the player owes it to the organization to be. You're hurt. Like, that's not the criticism. The criticism is, I don't think you were honest with these guys.
So, but here's where I say it's more than that. Every player in the world is going to tell you they can play. I can play. I'm going to be able to play. This is like, last time we went through this with Baker Mayfield, same thing, right?
Right.
He never should have been on the field.
The Browns should know better by now.
Yes.
Stop listening to the players.
Yeah.
Don't take the players' word for it. Believe your eyes. It's just like the storyline, right? He's going to, going back thinking about it now. Well, I saw him throw a handful of footballs on Thursday. Same thing on Friday. Didn't throw it all on Wednesday during those portions. So I don't know. Sometimes you just got to trust what you see with your eyeballs.
This also goes back to a conversation we had earlier in the week about why DTR was in the game last week, right?
Right. But they said it was completely independent of what happened to Deshaun.
But then Kevin came back and said it was on that play that he got hurt.
Right. He did get hurt on that play in the third quarter on the
Right.
10-yard run where he got drilled in the shoulder. But the point of it is Andy, the organization just has to be better and smarter. That's what I mean by elite organizations. Mm-hmm. Elite organizations ain't doing that Sunday morning. They know going into the game, 4 can't play. He's not available. He's injured. So guess what we do? DTR is ready to go, and we customize the game plan for DTR. Oh, by the way, that was the other thing that came out of the locker room. Kevin Stefanski didn't change the game plan.
Right.
They ran the game plan that they would run for Deshaun Watson. Now, how stupid is that?
Well, here's my question is, how would the game plan have been different?
Wow.
They were still struggling to run the ball.
Yeah.
And you do have to give Baltimore some credit. Their defense is pretty damn good.
Right.
I mean, they look really good. And Lamar Jackson looked really good today, too.
And I understand all that. But my point is, The coach failed the team out of the gate because he didn't change anything to accommodate the fact that the all-pro quarterback, or what they believe to be their all-pro quarterback, isn't available. And you threw a rookie to the Wolves who wasn't ready to be thrown to the Wolves. And that's not that kid's fault. That's why I'm not sitting here criticizing Dorian Thompson-Robinson saying, oh, man, boy, did he play like you know what. And just not – he was put in a position to fail on Sunday. And he failed spectacularly. And that's on Kevin Stefanski. That's on Andrew Berry. That's on the Cleveland Browns. That's not DTR's fault. I think that here's how the game plan probably should have changed a little bit. They should not have been empty as much. And I know the thing with the empty is it spreads the defense out, doesn't let them pin their ears back, yada, yada, yada. You need some extra protection back there for him. Right. Because he's running around like a chicken with his head cut off and he doesn't know what he's doing. And you saw that on so many plays. The gadget play, the direct snap to Harrison Bryant, toss it back to DTR, throw it down the field to Amari Cooper. And the only reason you got away with it is because Cooper drew the defensive pass interference. Correct. Stupid play call, though. Stupid.
Well, here's the thing. Here's what I say. If that was Deshaun Watson, I don't know if it's stupid in that case. Because, I saw it. I'm like, oh, here comes Harrison Bryant. He's walking off the side. He's just going to sneak it. It's 3rd and 1. Right. And then I think the beauty of it, when you go back and watch that play, you saw the spy come right into the gap to come get him. Right. And then immediately when he pitched it back, I was like, but the execution.
DTR's the one throwing the ball. That's the problem. That's why it's a stupid call. Deshaun Watson's not on the damn field. He's not on the field. So why are you trying to run plays with a rookie quarterback that you would normally run with a guy like a Deshaun Watson? And I know that they have similar attributes in how they play the game. I mean, DTR did a nice job on a couple of plays, getting out of pressure, extending some plays, rolling out. But I mean, some of his throws down the field, my God, get a shotgun and put the football out of its misery, which I mean, some of those down the field throw, again, just not ready.
They just seem too soft and just too easy to be picked off.
Not ready.
The other part of this game that I thought was super interesting was the fact that Baltimore was able to figure out a scheme to run against the Browns. And that was the first time the Browns had been exposed to that. And part of it is you're 3 weeks into the season, and now there's tape on you. And there's a way to figure out how to run, and they figured that out.
They absolutely got destroyed on the ground. 131 yards rushing it. They allowed. I mean, Baltimore had 250 yards of offense at halftime.
Right.
Like the Browns hadn't given that up.
The game was over at halftime. Let's not kid ourselves.
Right. The game was over at 14-3. That was it. It was.
I'll tell you where the game really ended. When before the half, it was 14-3. Browns come up with a sack. They push Baltimore back. They still have 3 timeouts. You get that big sack. Hey, maybe you come up with one more defensive play, and then you get the ball back and maybe try to get something to go before halftime. Right. They didn't call a timeout after the sack. I thought maybe they would, because now the Ravens were in a position to hold them down. And then all of a sudden you gave them the opportunity. They came back. They came up with a big play. And the next thing you know, you're giving up a touchdown right at the half. Yeah. That's where I think the whole thing turned. Because they had a chance. The defense wasn't playing horrible.
No.
They just they were going to be. They could have been the catalyst for what could have been the mounting of a comeback. But the Browns didn't do that. They didn't take the timeout. They didn't stop them there. And then they just didn't. There was no confidence.
Right.
There was no confidence. And it was at that point, once they got into the end zone, even if they would have held them to a field goal at halftime, they could have walked away feeling good about something.
Yeah, the big play hurt the Browns, just on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, they held the Ravens to 4 of 12 on 3rd down. Like, there is nothing there to complain about. That's actually a really, really good job. The problem is they gave up too many explosive mixed in there. A couple of guys in the locker room were talking about the missed tackles, and they actually said – and they weren't trying to discount what Lamar did to them on Sunday, because Lamar did account for 4 touchdowns, 2 rushing, and then the 2 to Mark Andrews. By the way, it'd be nice if the Browns, when they play the Ravens, that they would actually cover Mark Andrews.
I mean, talking about a guy that's averaging 6 catches a game against the Browns. A tight end who's getting 6 catches against the Browns every game. And I think last year was the first – he had like a streak of like 5 or 6 games where he had scored at least 1 touchdown, if not multiple touchdowns.
Can't guard Mike Andrews. That's what it is. But they felt that it was more them and the mistakes that they were making on defense more so than Lamar. But my point, Lamar's the one making you make the mistakes, because you just
first touchdown was the Moses play. The sea parted and he went right down the middle of it.
Well, both touchdowns he walked in untouched. So I don't think that this is the sky is falling for the Browns defense and that they aren't what we think they are or anything like that. I mean, they got put one touchdown. His first touchdown, right? I mean, they were at the 10-yard line. What are you going to do?
That was only like the third play in the red zone all season.
Right. So I don't feel as concerned defensively, depending on how Myles Garrett's left foot / ankle is, because he's in a walking boot right now.
Right.
Never good to see that.
True.
But yeah, I mean, defensively, it wasn't a sharp day, no question about it. But the offense is what concerns me. They have no running game right now. They haven't had a running game since Nick Chubb got hurt, really.
What do you do?
The last 2 weeks, right?
What do you do?
I mean, Jerome Ford did a nice job in Pittsburgh, but then, going Tennessee, run game, nothing there. This week against Baltimore, run game, not there. Honestly, I don't know what you do. I do know one thing they got to stop doing. They got to stop handing the ball to Elijah Moore in the backfield. He's not a running back. I love Elijah Moore. I think he's a really good player. I think they're trying to ask him to do way too much right now. And the 20-yard loss, that's a drive killer. It just blows everything up. So,
no, it's like last week's 16-yard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like once a week now we're seeing these really silly plays.
And the only points you got was a 53-yard field goal from Dustin Hopkins. And you know what? Hey, I'll take some barbecue sauce on my crow. The guy came in with a 50% average from beyond 50 yards. Dude is 3 for 3 kicking from beyond 50 for the Cleveland Browns here. So good for him. Really, that's the lone highlight. Other than David Njoku, questionable. Was he going to play? Wasn't he going to play? First of all, it was great to see him. He's okay. Thank God. I mean, that's a scary situation that he was in, getting burned, lighting a fire pit at home. But he led the team in catches today, had 6 catches. And this was a guy that, could have very easily said,
I'm not playing.
I can't play. And he went out there and he ended up leading the team in catches. So that, again, we're looking for some silver lining positive. We don't want this to be a complete negative, the sky is falling type of a post-game podcast,
right.
But there's a couple of bright spots there.
When I looked at the schedule, I was like, bye week 5, I'm like, that's not going to be good. But considering the scenario right now, I don't know that the bye week is such a bad thing.
Well, I said going into the season, we had talked about if they get to the bye week 2 and 2, they're in good shape.
Right.
San Francisco comes to town after the bye. That's going to be tough. But the schedule gets easier from there. And
you still got Indy, though, right after that, too.
I understand that, but it does get easier from there. And I think that there's a lot of wins. I think they're going to be able to stack some wins together if they're able to be healthy. And a big component of that health is Deshaun Watson. And he's got to be honest with them. He convinced them. So, I mean, that's what this comes down to. Deshaun Watson convinced Kevin Stefanski and the Cleveland Browns he was going to play on Sunday, even though he couldn't throw a football barely during practice in the week. And again, I'm not criticizing the injury or the fact that he couldn't perform in practice. I'm criticizing him because he convinced them he was going to be able to play. And so they planned for him to play.
But they still never should have played.
And they should have learned from Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
You never listen to your players when they say, I'm good. Because what do you expect them to say?
Of course they're always
He's
good.
always look, the guy played a game with cracked ribs and a punctured lung. They drove him to the game, right? And he was able to help the Texans ultimately win that game.
Right.
Again, I am not criticizing or questioning Deshaun's toughness. He's a very tough player. He plays with pain. Just physically, he couldn't physically throw a football. It happens. Injuries happen. But I just feel like you got to be a little more honest. And sometimes you got to swallow the pride. Coach, I want to go. I don't think I'm going to go on Sunday. And that conversation should have been had last week.
Friday or Thursday.
Thursday or Friday. And shame on Kevin Stefanski. The script, I was told the first 15 script, unchanged. The game plan, the philosophy, unchanged. And I think, and I understand what you're saying. Really, how does the game plan really dramatically change? But my point is, don't you think you should have tried to change something?
Yeah, I don't know, especially because they felt like they kept him because he has a lot of the same attributes as Deshaun Watson. This is the Jacoby Brissett versus Deshaun Watson, scenario that we had last year where the offensive line had settled in.
They missed 2 players on Sunday.
Yeah.
They missed Nick Chubb and they missed Josh Dobbs. I mean, that's right. I mean, that's
it's a fair way to put it.
And if you haven't heard, Nick Chubb, Yeah, as bad as we thought it would be. The knee basically got torn up, and so he had 3 things repaired, including his meniscus and his MCL, and then they got to go back in a second time to take care of his ACL. And so he's probably not going to be ready for the start of the 2024 season. He's going to probably be a midseason addition. So that, unfortunately, the reporting that was out there, it's just the MCL. They dodged a bullet,
Right.
And that was not accurate. It was as bad as because I was told after the game, multiple ligaments,
Right.
might be multiple surgeries, and that's ultimately what this is ended up being. But they missed Nick Chubb and they missed Josh Dobbs. I don't know that they would have won Sunday with Josh Dobbs, Andy. I just feel like the offense would have been a lot more competitive because what we saw Sunday afternoon was a complete and utter disaster. And I can't stress this enough. I do not blame Dorian Thompson-Robinson for that. I blame Andrew Berry. I blame Kevin Stefanski. I blame the organization because they put that kid in a position where he had no chance to succeed.
He's Daryl Ruiter. I'm Andy Baskin. It's always game day in Cleveland. And of course, I want to remind you that it's brought to you by our good friends at Bryant and Smiley One, Northeast Ohio's heating and cooling experts. We'll be back throughout the week. We got 2 more podcasts. We love the fact that you're watching us on YouTube, and we appreciate everyone that's joining in on the Odyssey app. Thank you so much. It's always game day in Cleveland. Thank you, Meredith Kane, our producer. We'll see you next week.